We all know how Hagia Sophia, how important it is, an architectural achievement, but the way he spoke and described details of the building, I do not think anyone else in the world was able to do, having such physical familiarity with the building itself. One time I remember him even saying that for 27 years of his life, he feels he spent living within Hagia Sophia. Robert Van Nuys, whom you see at his table within Hagia Sophia, is the architect who has drawn the most precise and detailed architectural plans we have of this great monument. He would draw at a table that he built himself from plywood and a couple of sawhorses at the gallery level, as you see him. His association with Dumbarton Oaks began in 1949 when he became visiting research associate in Byzantine architecture while working in the building, but it lasted until his death in 1994, where over the years, he was the senior and later honorary research associate in Byzantine architecture at Dumbarton Oaks. All these years, he was transforming his drawings, prepared inside the building for publication, which appeared in 2 oversized volumes published by Dumbarton Oaks, one in 1976, and you can see a drawing here of the ground plan, and one in the 90s, and this is where they came from and what the publication looks like on the right. These are huge drawings. So you see a view of this. So this was the earliest association of Dumbarton Oaks, supporting since 1949 a scholar whose sole work and attention was devoted to Hagia Sophia, a work that he had begun since 1936. The publications are so precise and meticulously drawn, and they are sort of even produced amazing architectural sort of wonder in themselves. His extraordinary craftsmanship provides us with these plans every possible detail ever applied, for example, to the physical structure, where nails left holes in the marbles, where the floor is more worn than other locations, where people scratched graffiti, and even the veins of the marbles themselves, which I hope you can see in the blown up side of the slide. All this can be found in the published plans, but also at the archives at Dumbarton Oaks. In those early years at Dumbarton Oaks was another great scholar who dedicated much of his work to Hagia Sophia. Oh, here's another elevation that I forgot to show you. This was Paul Atkins Underwood on the right, who since 1946 became resident assistant professor of Byzantine art and archaeology and moved up to full professor at Dumbarton Oaks, where he remained until his death in 1968. Underwood was the scholar who in 1950 was appointed field director of the then well-established Byzantine Institute of America that you heard of, active in Istanbul, uncovering and consolidating the mosaics of Hagia Sophia. The founder and director of this institute was Thomas Whittemore on the left, an art historian from Cambridge, Massachusetts, with studies at Tufts and Harvard, and with connection in the New England world of intellectuals, artists, and businessmen. He had a passion for the arts, but especially for Byzantine art. In his pursuit of this interest, Whittemore had even befriended Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the first president of the Republic of Turkey, and succeeded in gaining his permission already in 1931 for the uncovering of the mosaics that were known to exist in various parts of Hagia Sophia. The Byzantine Institute, which was also active in Boston, Paris, and Istanbul, had various connections around the world, gave priority to uncovering and consolidating the mosaics of Hagia Sophia, one of the largest conservation projects of the 20th century. At that time, Van Nuys was working also on his own, doing the drawings at the same time. These mosaics had been briefly exposed in 1847 to 49 by restoration by the Swiss brothers Fossati, who also made drawings of those that had survived. However, they were only documented and subsequently, as you can see, covered up in response to religious sentiments of the time. It was this work, the uncovering and exposing of these mosaics that at least we knew in part existed, that also led to the secularization of the Ayasofya mosque to a museum with an official ceremony that took place in 1934. Then words like these were expressed in the ceremony, and I'm quoting, "Owing to its historical significance, the conversion of the Hagia Sophia mosque into a museum will gratify the entire Eastern world and will cause humanity to gain a new institution of knowledge." This significant move was opening up Hagia Sophia, so to speak, to the world at large, making it part of the cultural heritage of humanity. Here you see another covered mosaic being slowly taken down, the plaster. The work undertaken by the Byzantine Institute continued over many decades, and after Whittemore's death, as I said, in 1950, Paul Underwood, as the new director, continued surviving the restoration and conservation work of Hagia Sophia. It was, you see various people here, photographs from the archives, uncovering, recording, restoring, photographing, and so on, of the mosaics, surfaces, and the panels in Hagia Sophia. Under his supervision in 1953, officially Dumbarton Oaks, the Byzantine Research Center, assumed the oversight of Hagia Sophia project in Istanbul. At Dumbarton Oaks, all this material is consolidated, and for the last 5 to 10 years or so, it is being digitized and made available for scholarship. And by the way, Underwood was also the man or director supervising the uncovering of the unique mosaics of the monastery of Kora, which we now also hear that it's going to become turned to a mosque, or has been. I would like now to turn to the mosaics that were uncovered and say a few words on the importance of these, not only for the history of Hagia Sophia as a functioning cathedral until its conversion into a mosque in 1543, but emphasize the importance of a number of these mosaics for the history of the Byzantine Empire. Before I discuss them, though, I would like to point out that Mehmed the Conqueror did not cover the mosaics when he converted the church of Hagia Sophia into a mosque. And although a mosque, we have drawings from the visitors of the 17th and early 18th century still showing the liturgical space with its figure mosaic still in place. I don't know how much you can see. I have some close-ups of the upper parts where you can see even the Virgin in the apse, the archangels on either side, and the seraphim in the corners. So it was not until the 18th century that a decision was made to cover them. So beyond the figural mosaics of the 9th century that were added to Hagia Sophia after iconoclasm, in the liturgical space, which is the nave, as you can see here, where the liturgy would take place and also where people would sort of congregate, we have the restoration of the apse. Here is as it's being cleaned. You can see the Virgin appearing slowly, actually the gaps of the mosaics that you see over here too that have fallen off. You can see also a view of once it was cleaned here on the right that corresponds to the lost built drawing, unfortunately with one of the archangels missing. And we have also the church fathers as they were being uncovered with, for example, here John Chrysostom. Not much more except further a few of these bishops has survived that were seen by the Fossati brothers. However, we have a number of what can be possibly called historical representations that also serve as symbolic depictions of ecclesiastical and imperial power. These are placed in locations as, for example, over entrances where clearly the emperor would either pass through and hopefully see them, or in the southern gallery where the emperor would stay during long liturgies, a space for the distinguished few and not the simple citizens. These all depict historical imperial figures, and all are shown in their relation to the church, represented obviously by either Christ himself or the Virgin Mary and the child. Over the western entrance, where the emperor would arrive to enter the church, we have a mosaic over the door, and here you see the various stages of cleaning it in these old photographs. That depicts, and you can see it on the right, but I have a better view of this here. The two emperors, two exemplary emperors, Constantine and Justinian, presenting gifts to God. The one, the city of Constantinople, the other, Hagia Sophia. Other representations were, another one was placed over the royal door, the main entrance into the nave, very high up, depicting an emperor on his knees praying to the enthroned Christ. It has been suggested that this figure is probably Leo VI, asking to be allowed to enter the church. The patriarch was accusing him of disobeying canon law by marrying 4 times, in other words, being a sinner, and would not allow him to enter the church. If this is the case or not, we can not be sure. But it is interesting that this mosaic, placed there at the beginning of the 10th century, was never removed and remained for 450 years the kind of symbolic image showing the place of the emperor in relation to the church. What to me are unique and precious historical records are the representations of emperors in the galleries. Except within manuscripts, where emperors as recipients of books are painted, these are the only life-size portraits we have of Middle Byzantine emperors, and indeed very few. We owe them to Whittemore and his desire and insistence to uncover mosaics of Hagia Sophia and to Atatürk that make this building into a museum, so that these historical figures and their histories could be revealed and studied by scholars. Whom you see here is the Emperor Alexander, who only ruled for a few years, who has himself represented almost hidden from view between 2 arches in the northern gallery. You can see him here sort of stuck in this area, hardly visible to anyone who passes by. But interestingly, he has an inscription emphasizing, praying and asking for help, but it is usually common, but emphasizing that he was Orthodox, and this is spelled out in this cross form on the left bottom roundel. Orthodox servant, contrasting himself with his brother Leo, who had sinned, remember, possibly the one that couldn't enter the church. Although dressed in the most elaborate and fancy imperial regalia, holding the globe in one hand and in his other, he holds, however, another object which is called akakia, this tubular object you see, which is a symbol of humility, since it contained ashes or earth within. The way the mosaic is also placed in the gallery makes Alexander look directly the apse, he's facing, so to speak, the apse, addressing his prayer to the Virgin Child. The other two panels are of imperial couples, each one with its own history. And here, I have to say, I cannot elaborate very much. They are placed on the same furthest wall of the southern gallery on either side of the large window. On the left, you see the panel of Zoe and her second husband, which are shown offering money that he holds in a money bag, and probably tax privileges to the church held by Zoe. This mosaic has an interesting history because the heads of all three figures have been changed, and not only of the first husband who was there before, Romanos, that was replaced by Constantinople. So there's much to read about that, and Dumbarton Oaks has made sure to publish a paper on that. Here you see also how a very careful copy was being prepared of the mosaics. Each little tube has been copied and is now at Dumbarton Oaks.
Professor Kalavrezou, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you're
only
5 minutes over.
5 lines.
You're
okay,
almost
the second is convenient. So there's more to study, unfortunately, that I cannot present to you. So thank you very much. This is this short glimpse of that.